Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4. I wasn't here. I have no vote. Let's see, we're here for a variance. Oh. Jeremy, typically we do a roll call. It's not on the list. Did you abolish that?
It is not. We did go to a new software and a new agenda, but we did go to a new software with the agenda publishing it. That is one thing that I just noticed it was left off, so that would be good to do.
We'll do the roll call. Jeff Leslie? Jerry Kennedy? Bob Pomerantz?
Here. Steve Shepard.
Steve Shepard. Thank you, Steve.
Right.
And I'm Rick Rogie. We're all here. Thank you. We have a variance hearing this evening to Article 8, Section 8.6, buffer yard landscaping, to eliminate the south side of a 5-foot landscape buffer requirement at 1012 South Lake Park Boulevard in Carolina Beach.
Chairman, all those who would need to be sworn in who are proposed to speak tonight.
Prior to your, okay. Everyone that's going to speak tonight, if they could please come forward and be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear that the statements you shall make are the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, Chairman. Board, Commissioners, I'm sorry, of adjustments, we're here for the variance for the landscape buffer requirement.
I don't think your microphone's on, Jeremy.
I'll give you a quick overview of our landscaping ordinance and why we have landscaping requirements. Is in our ordinance, we lay out different types of buffer yards and landscaping per different types of uses, versus residential, businesses, multifamily, industrial. And the proposal we have tonight is a business use, and it's required to have a 5-foot landscape buffer yard. And it's a type A. And the different types is what type of vegetation you may have to have in that yard. And you can kind of see it increases with the different types of uses as they increase intensity. And the purpose of why we have landscaping is to really screen out views within and between uses and properties. It regulates and the degree of impervious surface of asphalt, so you just don't have a sea of asphalt out there. It kind of breaks it up with landscaping and vegetation. It also serves as a visual character to the community, and the aesthetic quality, property values, and just what you want Carolina Beach to look like. It also provides a vegetated setback area where you have your setbacks, but they only control how far you are from property lines to a building. But you can have other things such as parking or an outdoor entertainment or seating area that become located into a setback. But with the landscaping requirement, you do have some offset from the property lines where it's just not right there on a property line where you're sharing with your neighbor. So that's one reason why you have that buffer yard. Just give you a background of the case tonight, 1012 South Lake Park Boulevard. The building was originally constructed in 1972. It's operated as a convenience store. And in that time, Carolina Beach didn't have landscaping requirements. And we didn't, and this, as you can see where the building was constructed for this property line here, it was actually probably a portion of it, even looks like it was built over the property line, much less having a setback. So that's the existing building, and we had in 2011 a proposed restaurant going in and was approved, and was a change of use. So you're going from essentially retail to a restaurant, eating establishment. And at that time, certain requirements kick in. You have to meet building code. You have to meet parking regulation. You have to meet landscaping. And so a landscaping plan was submitted with a new site plan. And the area that we're focusing on is the south side property line that shares with Carolina Sands common area. And it's that 5-foot landscape buffer that was required. Now, we're implying a regulation with an existing site where there's a building on there. There are some site constraints that makes it impossible for you to meet certain regulations, and we do try to work with businesses and coming up to try to meet the regulations, but not prohibiting something that is allowable in that area, which is a restaurant. So where feasible, they did have landscaping throughout the site. But the focus tonight is this concrete patio where they were proposing outside seating. And they do have currently outside seating. And in 2014, the property owner applied for a fence permit, which was issued to go along and fences can be located on the property line, and there's actually, is encouraged in this situation where you have commercial and residential uses beside each other. In spring 2015, staff started receiving some complaints. One which is a concrete patio being installed on site and into the buffer yard. There was a few other complaints that we went and visited, but they have done, the only one outstanding now is the landscape buffer, which we're here tonight to discuss. No permit was issued for the concrete to be installed, which does, as you can see, has increased the outdoor seating area. A permit would be required to review the impervious surface for stormwater, for the outside seating, which relates to parking spaces may be increased, and also water and sewer. There may be some impact fees assessed as well when you expand your business. So a notice was sent for the violation of the landscape buffer. The applicant then went over his options with him. He took it to town council to review the landscaping ordinance. That one option was, well, maybe if I put up a fence, do I really even need a 5-foot landscape buffer? Council reviewed several options, but ultimately decided to say, I don't think there's anything wrong with the ordinance, how it's being enforced or how it's applied or how it's written. So they decided to do nothing. So the ordinance currently exists as it has been. So the other option was to apply for a 5-foot variance in front of this board. And with that variance requirement, there are 4 conditions and hardships that the applicant must make provisions for and address to you. And you have the 4 there. And I will answer any questions. The applicant's here to address you.
Jeremy, typically in our packets, we would get the 4 questions, and the applicant would fill out his position on each of those. I don't have it in my packet. Is that something that has changed? Or
You do have the application, but the applicant didn't provide any additional material
Okay.
when he submitted the application to staff.
Okay. Does anybody have additional questions of Jeremy?
Reading the little bottom here, I can't read it, that's why I'm asking you. It says, I was informed by the building inspector how to install the, what? Columns?
Columns to support a roof on the patio, and this is the applicant's,
Right, his words. Now they say I have to keep it 5 foot.
buffer.
Now they say, where did that come from? Do you have any idea?
We can actually ask them.
Yeah, I would assume
Well,
that's
I'm just
when,
asking.
when I went out to do a site visit,
Uh-huh.
and that's when I first noticed that the landscape buffer, the concrete was going all the way to the property line.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm the, now I say,
Yeah, okay.
I would, if I had to assume.
So Jeremy, at that point, that was the first time you knew the concrete had been extended, is that correct? That's what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple quick questions, Jeremy. Do we know if the maximum impervious area has been exceeded or no?
With the impervious surface, it was, it's either, you have two options. Either you put in a stormwater system, and you could pay really 100%, as long as that infiltration system can handle it.
Right.
Or you could pay the town a fee for the amount of impervious surface that you have, based off a ratio. So there's not a maximum. It just depends on which criteria that he wants to meet. But you could, if you want to pave your whole lot, you could do that if you're for a commercial establishment, if you're going to pay the fee.
Okay.
And then the town would,
Adjust.
takes the fee and it collects the stormwater.
And the fee's based on the
Into its
amount of
system.
impervious area?
Correct.
Okay. Because I went over and looked, there's almost no impervious area.
Yeah, there's some in the back a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Does that
Impervious
negate-
area, I meant to say, I'm sorry.
Does that negate the 5 foot
No.
landscaping buffer? Is that not different? Impervious covering of, you couldn't cover and do landscaping.
Well, from a stormwater regulation, but you still, from a zoning standpoint, would need to maintain a 5-foot landscape buffer.
I do have another question. Prior to the concrete being there, was there landscaping in there?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any idea why the fence that a permit was given for, why the fence was never put up? Or was it put up and taken down?
Well, they got far as the columns. That's as much as I've seen at the fence.
Okay.
I have to ask the applicant why.
Okay, very
Nothing
good.
was.
Yeah. And one last question I have regarding the parking. Do you know if the additional seating in that area will pass the available parking that's there?
It appears that he would have to increase the parking
Okay,
if the seating were to remain.
okay. All right, that's good. That's all my questions. Anybody else have any questions?
My understanding, if you'll repeat, that we are only looking at a variance for the landscaping buffer, correct, tonight?
That is correct. So any evidence
Anything
heard
else
should
is
be oriented
relevant.
towards, strictly the landscape buffer and, not any other issues or history that may have happened with this property.
Anybody else? Thank you very much, Jeremy. And Vinny, would you like to present?
Hello, my name is Vinny Dory. I represent Uncle Vinny's at Caroline Beach. Can I hand out some pictures that I have to the...
Could you give one to Jeremy? So do you have the screen to put them up on, Jeremy?
Let's see what you got.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So I guess basically I can start off to A couple of years ago, I guess it's been about a year and a half since this project has taken place, I came to the city with a request to extend my patio a little bit, to build trussled ceiling over the patio and to protect the landscaping, which is Carolina Sands property next to my property, because in the summertime, when my patio is full, kids always run up in their area, running around the bushes and messing up all their areas, throwing trash there and stuff like that. So I thought of a way to protect that area from ever happening. So what I did was I came to the city and I asked them, I said, this is my proposed project. What do I need to do to qualify for this wall? It's not a solid wall. It'd be like a 3.5-foot fence around with beams that would support a trussled ceiling just to create some shading for the patio. They said because of the increase of the patio, I would have to increase my parking by 2 cars in the parking lot. So what they recommended was I had 2 entrances into my property. I closed off one entrance, and if you see on the first picture on the flyer that I gave you, I actually created 3 additional parking spaces, not 2 parking spaces, because the city said to do this, you need to increase it by 2 parking spaces. I actually increased the parking by 3 additional spaces to qualify for that part of the patio. I never applied for a fence permit. Richard, the building inspector, he asked me when I dropped off the drawing and stuff, he says, was that going to be a solid roof? I said, no, it's not a solid roof, it's a trussled roof. So he said the posts would have to be dug 2 feet wide by 2 feet wide by 2 feet deep and inserted with rebar for a foundation. And he also recommended that when I pour the concrete, to pour the whole concrete slab at once, because that locks in the posts better than if you pour a slab and just cover it with concrete. Now, the area that I covered, I understand the building was built in 1972. It was full of asphalt, and it had white rocks on top of it. So there was no vegetation there. It was.
This is the original
The
patio?
original, no, where I extended. The original patio to concrete, but where the proposed extension was, we had to dig up asphalt in order to dig down the 2 feet to make this area. Now, Richard, the building inspector, had come out on 2 different occasions to inspect my posts and stuff like that. And on one occasion, the first time he came out, he showed me that one needed to be increased in size. It wasn't actually 2 feet by 2 feet, so my contractor had to dig it bigger to accommodate his. And then he came out and gave me the inspection. Once I got the okay from him, then I went ahead and proceeded and poured the concrete slab. Now, like I said, the reason why I did this is, A, to create a little bit of shading on the patio, B, to stop the kids and stuff like that from invading the area that wasn't my property, the adjacent property. And I understand that the purpose of of buffers and stuff like that is to protect kind of your next door neighbor, but we really don't have a next door neighbor. It's like a common area, palm trees, bushes and stuff like that, but I just wanted to protect the area from kids going over there. If I just wanted to put up a fence, I didn't have to put it in columns, in concrete. I could have just drove the stakes in the ground. But they knew the purpose why I wanted to do it. That's how come I had to do 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet deep and rebar and all this kind of stuff. Because it had to hold some kind of structure from the trestle. If they had thought that it was just a fence, then why was I doing all that additional work? And like I said, that area, it was impervious. When I went there, like I said, it had asphalt and just white rocks on top of it. There wasn't vegetation and stuff growing. So I had thought that I did everything that I had to do to satisfy what the city wanted. Pour the foundation, pour the columns the way they needed to be done, increase the parking, and I thought everything was fine, hunky and dory, until Jeremy came to me one day and said, hey, you got the 5-foot buffer over here, what happened? Well, I was like, you guys knew kind of what I was doing. The inspector came out on 2 separate occasions. Nobody said anything to me. I thought I was doing this as a great thing to protect that property from my customers, and not the adults, but the kids running around in the woods over there and stuff like that. So I thought I was doing a good thing, and now all of a sudden I'm faced with this, hey, you did this, now they want us to dig it up and, bust up the concrete because of the buffer and stuff like that. So that's why I'm asking for a variance. If I intended, just like I said, if I intended just to put up a fence, I wouldn't have went through all the trouble and did all the requirements that the city wanted me to, if that's all that I was doing. I increased my seating. That's why I had to increase my parking. That's why I had to pour the concrete the way they recommended. So I think I thought I did everything by what I was supposed to do. And then here we are now with this situation with, hey, you invaded a 5-foot buffer and stuff like that. Part of the building, like you said, is actually over the parking lot. The little area, because it's kind of like a little triangle patio that we added. So if you go towards the front, you don't have 5-foot clearance as a buffer anyway. There's only like 2 feet, and then it fans out to like 5 feet on the end of it. So that technically that 5-foot buffer was never there in the beginning between the old patio and the property line. It's just a unique design. And like I said, I was just trying to do this to protect that natural area from my customers in the summertime when they're eating outside and the kids are running around like crazy out there. So basically, if you have any other questions, I'll surely answer them, but that's, as far as my knowledge, that's what I thought I was accomplishing, was doing what the city wanted and doing the community a service also, by protecting that area. So if anyone has any other questions.
I'm sure there are some. Watch, just hold on a second. Questions?
I got this plan that's dated, says Ed and somebody, dated 5/12/2011, and the plan itself is dated 3/11, and it says move parking and patio. Now, was this ever approved?
Oh, that's the original construction of the original conversion that was approved, yes.
Okay, and it shows the 5-foot landscape buffer on there.
Right.
I guess the question might be is why did you deviate from this plan?
Well, that's why I came to the city to ask them, this is what I want to do to protect this area. I want to increase the size. What do I have to do? At that point in time, like I said, they're the ones that told me, you're increasing the patio by this many square foot. You need to add 2 more additional parking spots. So,
And you gave them a drawing showing them you were going to concrete right to the property line?
Because it was part of the drawing with the roof and everything that I dropped off.
So
Where's
the
that
drawing
drawing?
showed that you were within the 5-foot buffer.
No, it did not show that I was in the 5-foot buffer.
Oh,
Because we took it to the property line, because there's a fence there. It's not a fence, it's like a little rope decoration type of thing over there existing now. And that's the property line, so we took it to that property line.
right. I think the question we're asking is did you get a permit to put this in?
Oh, yeah, we got the permit.
Okay. So on your permit, you showed you were going to put concrete right up to the property
Right.
line? Okay.
Like I
And
said,
you
if
got-
I wasn't going to do the
And the
concrete,
permit was
I would-
granted?
Right, the permit was granted. If I didn't have to put in the concrete, I wouldn't have had to increase my parking spaces. The reason why I had to increase the parking was because of the additional concrete. If I just wanted to put a fence there, there's no reason why I had to increase parking spaces. If I just wanted to put a privacy fence.
So the permit shows that the concrete was to the property line.
My
And-
drawing that I dropped off to them showed what I was going to do.
And when the inspector came out, the concrete was poured to the line?
Prior,
When
when the inspector came out, the posts were in place prior to pouring the concrete.
The poles are on the property.
They were on the property, the holes were dug out, and he looked at them, he says, okay, they look fine. He checked them to make sure I had the rebar and all that stuff, and he says, okay, go ahead and pour your concrete.
But we don't know if a lot of times you can walk out to a property and you don't know where a property line is.
Right.
So, I mean, he could have easily said yes. I've seen that done tons of times.
Right.
And have no idea.
When inspector, I can ask this question later.
Yeah.
When inspector goes out, he or she doesn't consider that there must be a 5-foot buffer. They're only inspecting X item and not multiple, not an overview.
Well,
I guess that's what I'm saying. In other words, when that inspector went out, should he or she have taken into consideration that there is a 5-foot buffer required? And are these holes 5 foot there? They comply with 2 foot by 2 foot, but do they comply with the buffer? That's what I'm asking.
I think I'd love to see a copy of the drawing for the permit if it in fact shows that this concrete goes right to the edge of the property, I don't know how you ever got a permit for that.
And that's a problem. They can't find a drawing that I submitted with the permit. Because I had to submit the drawing with the permit in order for them to okay the permit. The permit was issued, but no one can find the drawing for it.
Okay.
So that's why it's kind of like, weird kind of gray area of what to do, you know what I mean? What do we do from this point on?
So we've got record of the permit finalized, approved, just not the drawing. Is that correct?
No, sir. The only permit that's applied and was paid for and issued was for a fence permit. I've yet to see an application for any type of patio or impervious surface or for outdoor seating or as a new revised site plan showing where the parking spaces are going to be located. I asked the applicant, can you show me a copy of the permit? And I have yet to see it.
Well, Jeremy, when he asked for a permit to put the fence in, the posts that are represented along the edge there, is that where they were supposed to go?
That is where the proposed fence was going.
So that, the posts are in their proper position?
Yes.
Okay. As permitted?
And it was for a 6-foot fence.
Yeah, for a 6-foot fence, okay. So then he went and poured concrete around the post.
Correct.
Yes, he did.
There seems to be a discrepancy in the definition of a fence 6 foot going down the property line, approved for the property line versus what you're saying.
These columns to
is that
support the trestle and
columns,
stuff.
it wasn't going down the property line, the fence was just to enclose one side of your.
Well, I wanted to block my patio from the
Right,
kids.
but as opposed to a 6-foot fence going down the property line.
Right, yeah, that wasn't the case. If I just put up a fence, I would have just drove them 2 feet in the ground and that's it. If it was a fence, they, when I proposed this, they're the ones that told me because they got to hold a load and support something, this is how I have to construct them. If I just wanted to put a 6-foot privacy fence, I could have drove the poles 2 feet in the ground and saved myself $2,000. You know what I mean?
But you put the posts where the fence posts were going to be.
Right. I put
You
them
just built-
where
you
my
just
original
built it a
drawing
little
was.
bit bigger.
Right, showing the trusted ceiling and everything. I put them where they were supposed to be. The
But
posts
there's-
are where,
But there's no record
and
of any of
that's the
that.
point.
And you don't have anything
I don't
that
have it
shows you.
because, Jeremy can tell you over the years, every time I've ever done a project or something like that, he can tell you, I always come to the city and ask their permission, what do I have to do? And like I said, this is what I was steered in this course, in this direction, this is what you have to do. If it's a fence, just drive them in the ground. Because you're holding up a trusted ceiling, you need to construct them in a different manner, which is the 2 feet by 2 feet, 2 feet deep. Like I said, I did everything that I had to do because this is what I was recommended from the city to do.
Okay, then how did you get to the concrete then?
Well, the concrete was always a part of the thing. That's why they recommended when I poured the concrete in the holes to the posts to pour the concrete all at one time because it further secures those posts in ground.
I don't disagree with that,
Right.
but you did know that you had a 5-foot,
No, I did not know anything about the 5-foot buffer.
okay.
I thought that my property line ended where I was building the fence because there was never vegetation or anything there. It was a concrete patio, and then there was a little triangle shape, and underneath it, like I said, there was 6 inches of asphalt with about 2 or 3 inches of white rock on top of it. So it was an impervious piece existing from the pre-existing business, always been there. So it's not like I dug up dirt to pour the concrete. I was digging up an impervious surface already. I just wanted to make it a little nicer. You know what I mean? Instead of leaving rocks, you know what I mean? I wanted to pour a concrete slab just to make it more comfortable for my customers.
Rick, as I understand it, this building was built prior to a 5-foot buffer landscaping requirement. And the only reason it has a 5-foot landscaping requirement now is it's a change of use.
Yes, ma'am.
And right now, looking at the drawing, there is not a consistent 5-foot across the property line because the building is there. So you could probably have not have known requirement because the building before didn't have to have one. So, you know, there's a
Maybe.
issue there.
Maybe.
And also, it is an inconsistent 5-foot buffer area of landscaping or foliage, almost defeating the 5-foot buffer, the reasoning behind it, because you've got the building sticking out on the lot already.
Your business was the first restaurant in there?
Yes, sir.
So then you were involved in the transformation from it being a little convenience store to being a restaurant.
Well, actually, Ralph Roof, the owner of the property, he handled all the construction and stuff. I came in after he got the CO and stuff like that, you know, with the equipment and basically set up
And
shop.
was Ralph Roof involved in your expansion? Does he know about it?
Well, he knew what I was going to do, but
Okay.
he wasn't involved in the plans or anything like that.
Sure.
He didn't have any. I asked him, said, Ralph, this is what I want to do. Do you have a problem with it? He goes, no. He says, just as long as you go to the city, everything is fine. And that's what I proceeded to do.
Is there any other questions?
I'd just like to hear from the Carolina, if there's someone from Carolina Sands regarding what is on
We're
that.
going to get to that in just a minute.
I'd also like to hear from the inspector.
We'll get to that in a moment, too. Okay. There's no other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's time for some public comment now. Persons that are in favor of this, could you please step up?
I am in favor of granting variance.
Correct. And if there's anyone opposing this variance, could you please step up?
Would this be when the Carolina Sands Association speaks?
It would be anybody that, yes, anyone that is opposed to us granting this variance. And if you could state your name and address, thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Stragus. I am a board member of the Carolina Sands Homeowners Association. Okay, is better?
Yes.
Okay, I am a board member of the Carolina Sands Homeowners Association, and I'm here tonight representing the owners of the 268 lots in our community. We are very much opposed to any buffer reduction. The buffer is a vital ordinance for the protection of every lot owner in Carolina Beach. Prospective owners research before they purchase, and they engineer their homes to meet the requirements of this ordinance, and they trust that their neighbors will be required to do the same. We have received numerous emails and Facebook posts from our residents expressing their opposition to such a variance. In the past, our residents bordering Uncle Vinny's restaurant had significant trouble with parking, noise, and trash. Although we appreciate the cooperation we have received from the owner of the restaurant to abate these problems, we feel any expansion into the buffer zone would be a major hardship, especially for the homes in the immediate vicinity of the restaurant, one of which is adjacent to the buffer zone. It is our understanding that one homeowner has had a significant problem in trying to sell his house because of the close proximity to the restaurant. Such a change would only add to the problem if the house is put back on the market. We believe our residents have the right to a quiet enjoyment of their homes, and such an expansion on the part of the restaurant will affect this drastically. We ask the Board of Adjustment to take this into consideration when making your decision, and we respectfully ask that this request be denied. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
I'm pretty bad cold. My name is Doris Diamond Schoonmaker. I live at 929 Carolina Sands Drive. It seems to me, and what I've heard, that there was a mistake made someplace in the lines of communication, and I'm very sorry for the effort and expense that Uncle Vinny's Restaurant has made there. But there's a reason we have the buffer zones, there's a reason we have the vegetation requirements, and those are still absolutely in effect here. There are homes, there are people, there is our landscaping. But more importantly, it is a constant problem for the people who are living there as it is. To extend that to allow more people to get rid of what should be a 5-foot vegetative buffer, just fully against. I appreciate your time to consider this and to hear our thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. I am Jeremy Fenn. I am the resident of that house right there behind Uncle Vinny's and adjacent to his property and adjacent to the Carolina Sands property. I am not the property owner. I'm the guy that's lived there for 5 years having to deal with this restaurant. I've also done business with Vinny, so this is kind of a sticky situation for me because I'm a builder and do work for that place. Eric LaChance is the owner of the building. Me and him are actually very good friends. The reason I'm living there is because I sold my house. He was moving to Arizona. He said, hey, take my house while you look for a house. We fell in love with the house. He's had problems selling the house since it's been a restaurant because he had it on the market before I moved in for about 1.5 years. A lot of this is all happening because of me, because I am the one that filed the complaint. I am the one that filed and called about the posts going up because those are not fence posts, those are building posts. You can put a house on those posts. A fence post would be a 4x4 post going in. And when I called up and asked if anybody knew anything about it, nobody knew anything about anything going in. And then I went backtrack and got a fence permit for that. Put some posts. The posts are already in, so they got it approved, whatever they did. Then the slab went in, so I called up. And then they asked, why don't you make a formal complaint this time? And this is why we're here. I put the formal complaint in because, yes, it has increased the seating. He's got 16 extra seats on that patio, all the way out to the buffer zone, through the buffer zone. He's correct in saying that the patrons of the business do trash the gardens. They trash my gardens. They're in my yard most of the time, running around all the bushes, playing hide and seek, trampling over my rose bushes, crushing the fence that I actually have between the two pieces of property, to a point where I don't even take care of that garden anymore because it's pointless. The music and stuff that we've had problems with over here, I like the music, so I have had it party up, especially during the summer. We enjoy it. We actually throw parties when he throws parties because people enjoy the music on our deck. But just adding that much more and the parking issue with it and not having enough parking, we have parking signs in front of our house now because we can't even park in front of our own house because his patrons would be parking in our yards, our second driveways, on our lawns, trying to get parking over there for that because they can't park out on the main road or in the parking lot. Eric is very livid at this point that this has even been done, even being recognized to be approved. He cannot sell his house. Everybody that came to look at that house, because we were friends and we used to talk a lot about it, the first question they asked is, what is that and what do I got to deal with? So his property value kind of suffers a little bit for it. So that's one of the reasons why I live there. But we love the house. We want the house. But I've already told Eric I will never buy the house not knowing what's going on down below because of what may happen to me in the future. What happens if it does grow? What happens if it does get crazier? And I want to sell the house, and I'm going to lose it. So I'm very against it. I'm sorry that Vinny went that far with it, or how it got confused that he could pour a slab like that and increase seating. It just shouldn't happen. He's already, past the parking issues. He's got employees parking in the lot behind him that is actually woods at this point. That's not his property. Back behind his building where his property ends, the landscaping has been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back into a lot that's non-developed that he's got people parking in those spots already. So he doesn't have enough parking for even his employees as it is. So I hope that this doesn't get approved. I hope that you all know you're going to be hearing from Eric if it does get approved, and he's not a very nice guy when he gets mad. He's a very, very to-the-point type of gentleman. You're going to hear it. And he asked me to express that to you guys, and he's ready to fight this every way he can. All right? Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you. None yet. Are there any others that are opposed to this? I think we might have some yes. Vinny, come on up.
Like I said before, and I hate to go back over it, the purpose of one of the reasons why I'm doing it is to protect that landscape. If I decide to take the post down and dig up the concrete, and don't do anything to that site, then all next summer, the same problem that's been going on is going to go on. Kids running around, playing in the bushes. Me and my employees go out there a million times, hey, kids, come back, come back. Parents don't control their kids. I'm doing this to protect that property, to protect that buffer. If I don't do nothing, that landscape is going to constantly be an issue with the community and the property management, because the kids are not going to stop from going there. By me doing this allows me to protect that natural area that is at the Carolina Sands. That was the main reason why to do this. And I apologize for, like I said, parking on the streets, on the side streets. That's mainly when I used to have block parties for fundraisers and charity events, which I no longer do anymore because it was creating a parking problem in Carolina Sands for people parking and coming to my events. That's one of the reasons why I don't do it no more, because I don't want to be intrusive to my neighbors. So that's why I stopped doing the fundraisers and stopped doing the charity events with, like I said, the parking lot parties, because I don't want to be intrusive. I don't want to take up parking spaces. So,
Vinny, can you tell me how those 4 posts are going to keep people from going over there?
because I'm going to put a fence from here and in between the posts and connect to the back of the building. Like this, the only way people can come in and out the patio is through my restaurant. If I take the post down and take out the concrete and leave it open, then it's going to be like last summer. Kids are going to be running around and everything. I'm proposing to put, like I said, a fence there to stop people from going into that private natural area, because they spend a lot of money in Carolina Sands to keeping that place looking nice. And every summer, every night, when I have a full patio, the kids are running around all over the place because the parents that are visiting, they don't care. They just don't care. And that's one of the reasons why I want to close it in, is to protect that natural area. Okay, there was a buffer. Like I said, there's not an actual 5-foot buffer line that runs throughout the whole course of the property. It zigzags in and out, and, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, or else I would have never took on this expense. I would have just left it like it was.
It appears that if you had gotten a permit to do it, it would have been real clear right away.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So
I mean, a fence permit that's not a fence.
exactly. When the inspector came out there, he knows that's not a fence. A fence is a 4x4 post, not an 8x8 treated lumber.
Wow.
And you know what I'm trying to say? If he says,
So you're thinking that he should just assume?
not assume, they knew what my intentions were, is what I'm saying. If I would just put up a fence, why would I pay $30-something a post when I could put a 4x4 post in the ground and just put up a fence? They knew what the intention was of the property. Now, because people are, saying something, now they have to research it and what's going on and so on and so forth, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? If, if I just don't know what to do at this point in time, and that's why I'm saying, that's why I asked for a variance. I know it's really hard to get a variance in certain situations, but I think this, in lieu of the protecting and the initial thing of protecting the property next to me, that would qualify for, okay, normally that doesn't happen, but the building isn't on 5-foot variance anyway, a buffer zone, and he is protecting the landscaping next to him, so why not make him do it to protect that property? But if they don't want me to protect that property, then I won't protect that property. I really, it's not up to me to protect that property. If they want me to take it down and leave it the way it was, 1 day's time and a couple of jackhammers, I can have it done, and that property, I'm not responsible if the kids run rampant all the time. I don't,
So, Vinny, are you aware that this board cannot make an emotional decision about
Right.
what
No,
we'd
I
like to
understand.
have and not have?
I understand that, but like I said,
Did you see the requirements that you have to meet?
no, I never knew that there was a 5-foot buffer
No, that's
in
not.
that
That
area.
wasn't my question. That wasn't my question.
The requirements that I saw was what I did, what the inspector told me to do. And Vinny, in order for you to do this, this is what you have to do. You have to dig these holes this deep. You have to put rebar in the wood. You have to pour the concrete slab. This is what you have to do. You have to increase your parking by 2 parking spaces if you want to do this. That's what I heard from the city. How would I know that I had to increase my parking by 2 spaces had I applied for a fence permit? You know what I'm trying to say? As far as I'm concerned, I did what the city told me to do. I constructed it the way the city told me to construct it. Now, because people are complaining about it, now the city's coming back on what happened and saying, hey, you got to do this and you got to do that. And like I said, I'm not one to rock the boat. Whatever you guys decide to do, you guys decide to do. And like I said, I'll do whatever accommodates the city because I'm a longtime business owner here. I'm a resident on the island. I'm not planning on going anywhere. I don't want any enemies. But if you guys don't want me to close it in and block it off, then I'll leave it open like it was, and just let it be what it is. I mean, I'm trying to do what I got to do in accordance to what the city told me to do. And that's all I have to say, really. I'm trying to protect that area by closing it off. But if we can't see eye to eye in situation, I'll just go back to the way it was.
But you didn't understand what I was asking. Jeremy, when you apply to come for a variance, is the applicant given the conditions that they must meet in order to secure that variance?
Correct. It's within the application.
Okay.
They
So
must
my
address.
question to you, Vinny, is, in the application to be here tonight, it clearly states that you have to meet certain requirements. We can't say, it's a great idea, we think it would look good, let's do it. That's not what this board's job is. If you meet the criteria, clearly, you get the variance. If you don't meet it, no matter how much we want it or don't want it, it gets denied. So I'm just kind of wondering if you would like to address each of those items
Yeah,
to
I don't
help
mind.
everybody have a clear idea.
Okay. No problem.
Jeremy, do you have a copy of those?
Yes.
Oh, there they are, right there. So if you don't mind kind of giving us an answer to number 1 and number 2 and number 3.
Well, I guess unnecessary hardship would be me coming to the city, being advised to do something in a certain way, and the city advises me to do it in that manner, and now all of a sudden they're backtracking to, hey, why did you do this or why did you do that? That way, I guess, would address number 1, that's unnecessary hardship.
Okay.
Because
I would really like to get a lot of information.
Why
Do
not?
you mind if I keep asking
Oh, no,
questions?
not at all,
Is
not
that
at
okay
all.
with you?
Not at all.
Because I'd like to know if there isn't any permit for anything but a fence. I mean, you can talk, I've built a lot of houses in this town, and I go in and I give them all kinds of scenarios, and they were always very helpful. Well, you would need to do this, or you would need to do that. Now, if I came in with a permit then to build a house, well, maybe it was clear that, oh, no, this won't, or that's not going to work. But if you come in and get a permit for a fence, and then you build a patio, I'm not quite sure how those fit together. I'm a little
I never applied
concerned.
for a fence permit.
But you have a fence permit.
No, they were, in the beginning, they were never able to find the permit that was issued, nor were they able to find the drawing that was submitted with the permit. And after some time and stuff like that, then Jeremy says, oh, it's a fence permit. They couldn't never find any paperwork for it because, it was a $50 permit fee that I paid, but they can never find the permit. They can never locate it, and Jeremy, I think, can attest to that. They can never find the drawing or the permit that were pulled for the job.
You have a canceled check?
I paid with a credit card, so I guess they would, it shows up on their record that a permit was paid for, but I couldn't actually find the permit or the drawing itself. So then, a while later, Jeremy presented with a fence permit, per se, or whatever it is, but I never signed for a fence permit, and that's not what I applied for. I applied for this trusted ceiling, columns, with a drawing and everything.
Okay, excuse me
So
just a second.
that's one.
Sure, hang on
Okay.
just a second, Vinny. Is the price for a fence permit the same as for a significant addition like this?
No, it would not be. Fence permit is $25.
Okay,
And this was $50.
For this, if there was a permit applied for, we'd route it through. You'd have a zoning fee. If there's a trellis or if it's attached to the building, there could be a building permit fee. There could be a stormwater fee, and there's also impact fees. So you're talking more than $50.
I'm talking probably a few $100, $200, $300.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do you think you could check and see if you actually
No,
paid?
I know how much the permit was. It wasn't for a $25 fence permit. I paid $50 for the permit to do
Okay.
what I had to do.
But
I
you
didn't pay
couldn't have gotten
$25.
a permit for what you are showing
I
us.
thought I was getting a permit for what I submitted that I wanted to do. That's what I thought I was paying for at the time. They can never find the drawing nor the permit for the job. But like I said, Richard, the inspector, came out on 2 separate occasions to inspect the job, so he's not going to come out and inspect something unless a permit was pulled for that job, because you have to put the permit number, I guess, with the inspection or whatever it is. So as far as I knew, I was paying for the drawing that I submitted, which was a $50 fee is what I paid.
Do we have a copy of that fence permit?
Yeah, and I apologize I didn't put it in your packet, but yes, I do have a copy of the fence permit that I can get and submit to you.
I think that would be very helpful. It seems to be really important, please. Thank you. We'll just take a short break here while Jeremy gets that, okay? What typically we'll do is we'll ask people that are for something and against something, and then each side has an opportunity for a rebuttal. But we're really not here to, I don't mean to be rude, we're really not here to answer your questions. You're here to answer ours. I'm sorry. We would, if this wasn't quasi-judicial, we could have a lot more leeway in what we can do. But we have to really strict rule, other than ourselves and the town council. Almost any other board that you would go before could be a lot more lax about it. I'm sorry, I can't help you more.
So he does have a legitimate fence permit. How would he get from a fence permit to 6x6 post then? You can have a post because we can decide. Sure.
I told him that we did have a permit for a fence, going through this process. Sure. I don't know if he hasn't asked for a copy of it.
This is what he turned in. I see his signature. I see his signature, but I want to make sure this is what he's talking about, he turned in.
Could we get some copies of this, Chairman?
Yeah, certainly.
Maybe one for each of us and one for Vinny. Let's just hold on, Vinny, until he gets that, and then we'll go to number 2.
And like I was saying also, the area that I did cover was already covered with asphalt. It wasn't landscaped and bushes and stuff. It was existing,
Right.
so I don't know if it's
We need to hold
grandfathered
until
in.
Jeremy gets
Yeah.
back, okay?
I don't know if it's grandfathered in.
Thank you, Ed.
And Jeremy, one more definition for landscaping. Is there a definition for the landscaping buffer?
There was,
For the, what was required?
presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you go to that page, please? Back to the beginning. Okay. No, I mean as far as what the vegetation could be.
And for a 5-foot landscape buffer, and for every 50 linear foot of property, you have to have 3 shrubs, 2 understory, and like 1 canopy tree. And we have a list of plants and trees that are acceptable within that.
And do we know if they were there in 2011?
There was definitely some sort of greenery or hardscape there. There wasn't anything within that buffer. To the degree of what exactly specific material was there, I don't know, and I don't have a picture of it. But I do have the plan that was approved, and that's the site plan that we have on file. Nothing has been, we haven't received any revisions of the original site plan and landscaping plan that was originally approved. So that's, when we look at any changes on site, the plan that's approved is what we go to,
Got it.
unless there's a permit for revisions, in which we have none.
Got it.
And that's the plan, Jeremy, that we have a copy of.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeremy, when the original building was built, was there no conformity to anything? Because they built it on somebody else's property, essentially.
It does look like a portion of that building does encroach.
And it not only encroaches, it's on.
Yeah,
You know
so,
what happened there? Why, did the property line get moved or something? Was there when they did Carolina Sands, did they move the property line or they get a more accurate survey of the property?
trying to think in 72 if that was part of the town limits at that time.
Well, that's true.
I know the town limits, that was the town limit line, was Carolina Sands before they were annexed with their approved subdivision. But why I got there in 72, maybe, I don't know what the setbacks or the inspector was even looking at setbacks at the time, or I really can't speak to why it would be over the property line.
Yeah. Carolina Beach was different, 72. And it just,
Yeah, this was built in 72. Carolina Sands, wasn't approved until the early 80s.
And Sands came much after, way after this building.
The buffer on the other side, on Carolina Sands side, that's a common area.
That is,
There's not a house in that common area. The house that we see in the picture is to the back or to the side of it. Okay, sort of category.
yeah, here's an aerial photo. Showing you. This is the common area that abuts where the outdoor patio is. And here's Uncle Vinny's.
There's a square footage in there, rather a nice common area there. That is the buffer. Right?
That's the Carolina Sands landscape buffer. Is that, yeah, I mean, they have a nice, tremendous landscape in their common area.
So there's like much area between many homes there.
Shall we continue and let Vinnie answer the questions? You know? Okay. Vinnie, do you mind coming back up and answering?
Could you go back to the plot plan, the original plot plan? All of a sudden, the thing was square, now it's no longer. So they built a building. Let's see where it says, where it says grass right there on that plot plan. I'm trying to figure out where I am in relationship to the building that's on there now. The building that was on there or is on there.
So you see the outline of the brick building here?
Oh, I see it now. I got you.
Yeah.
All righty.
And when it was originally constructed as a convenience store, they had fuel pumps out here, and this essentially was just a canopy that they've enclosed.
Okay. And even when they built it back then, the property line bisects the corner of the building.
If that property line was there at that time, there are many properties in Carolina Beach that houses are either buildings are built and now they've been subdivided after the building, so there are many houses sitting in the corners.
Would that be the old boundary of the property of the city? And that's why it sort of goes that way? So when the city incorporated, that boundary line became existent? You follow what I'm...
Yeah, yes, at one time that was the town limit line.
So there was nothing on the other side to say where you could build on, literally, because there wasn't any property there. I mean, no...
It was privately owned, but it was undeveloped.
Yes, right. Okay, thank you.
Back to the questions. Number 2, Vinnie, if you don't mind.
I would have to refer to the thing again, like I said. I don't know how it would apply to that, but I was just doing what I was recommended to do and requirements that I needed to do in order to do the project. I don't know how it would fall in hardships for number 2 that's listed. You know, they seem to be all resulting in not knowing something or confused property lines and stuff like that. Like I said, I never knew that there was a 5-foot buffer in that area because there's no 5-foot buffer on that whole side of the building that's consistent down. You know, it's only when it comes out to that front part of the property that there is 5 feet. The farther back you go, the smaller that 5-foot buffer gets. So there's no 5-foot buffer per se ever existing for that whole side of the building. So that's why I never even knew about a 5-foot buffer. So I don't know how it would fall on hardship just for me not knowing, you know, just looking at the property. I'm like, hey, that's not 5 feet between that building and that property line. So I didn't know anything about it, you know. Number 3. I guess I would also be that, you know, I'm just the tenant in the building, you know, leasing it from the owner of the property itself and not knowing, I guess it's, you know, maybe I should have done more due diligence to say, listen, is there a buffer over here? Not just assume that there wasn't just because I didn't see one. So I'm not exactly sure how it would affect, you know, even number 3. Like I said, everything I've ever done, I just come to the city saying, hey, this is what I want to do, what do I have to do? And they tell me, Vinnie, do this, do this, do this, do this, and that's what I did. And now, like I said, for a few individuals that don't want me to protect the property, we find ourselves here today, you know, trying to get a variance or trying to plead my case to, hey, this is why I think maybe we should make an exception for this one rule, because the building was never a consistent 5-foot buffer. It was always an impervious surface because there was asphalt there. It was never a grassy area that I'm intruding on. I'm just recapping what was existing with a different impervious surface. You know, so like I said, as far as I know, I didn't do nothing wrong. You know, I was just replacing something broken with something new. So I'm not exactly sure, if the building was ever in compliance with a 5-foot buffer. I don't know if it's grandfathered in. It doesn't have a 5-foot buffer because there was never a 5-foot buffer applied to the property. I have no idea. I'm just trying to protect that natural area that is the entrance to Carolina Sands. And this is the best way I can find doing, is to close it in with a little fence to keep the kids from ruining the landscaping. As my next door neighbor says, he doesn't even take care of that area because of the kids running around, messing up the rose bushes and everything. If they want that to continue, then, if that's what the city wants me to do, then that's what, I'll do. I'm just trying to protect the area, not ruin the area with the increased, buffer zone. I know everyone's saying, it's a 5-foot buffer, we want to protect the integrity of the community. Well, by me protecting that area, it is protecting the integrity of the community, the beauty of the community. If they don't want me to do nothing about it, then I'll let them keep on incurring the expenses of redoing the landscaping and fixing it from the kids playing in it. I'm trying to do everything I can to help the community, to show the community, hey, I respect your property, I want to protect it. And now the community's coming back at me, hey, we don't want you to do that, forget about it, you just let the kids do what they want to do. So I'm kind of confused, you know what I mean? So
it appears like they're trying to just enforce laws that are on the books.
Exactly, but
Yeah.
I think sometimes they're not looking at the bigger picture sometimes. I'm actually trying to do good by them, not infringe upon their area, common area. You know what I mean? I'm trying to
Right,
help
but-
their common area.
But there's still a law on the books. And you
Well,
gotta-
yeah, I understand. That's henceforth my.
Sure, go ahead.
Now that we have this approved, signed, paid-for fence application, what can Benny do legally if he does not, or does not receive the variance? Legally, he can build this fence on the line?
Certainly, and the town would encourage a fence located there. And, we issued a 6-foot fence for that location, and we would say, have at it, please do.
And this says on the side of the building, does that say he can go the whole length of his building?
He could, and attached to that permit was the fence regulations, and it's just once you get within 20 foot of the front property line, you do have to narrow it down to the height 4 feet.
And he would have to tear out the concrete and take the I guess the columns would stay, but he would tear out the concrete and replace it with what was there before?
Correct.
Which was asphalt.
Jeremy, if he's got a fence permit to run a fence down the length of his property, he's going to have to extend that fence into their property line, because his edge of his building is on their property, and if he wants to clear his building with a fence all the way down the side of the building, which he actually has a permit to do, how do you get around that?
Well, he could locate the fence on the property line, and if he want to use the building as part of that barrier for the fence, he can. But the fence...
The fence then is not on
we
his
couldn't
property.
authorize, we couldn't approve a fence on someone else's property.
Well, you sort of did.
No, the fence could not be, it has to be on the property line. It cannot be on to the
Well,
adjacent.
how does one do a fence down a property line when the property line is intercepted by the building that he's got?
He can't go,
I know what you're saying.
he can't go beyond the building. That doesn't give him a right to even encroach further with
So he brings
additional
the fence to
structures.
the edge of his building and then starts the fence up on the other side of his building?
Yes, sir.
Is what you would expect. Not exactly what it says, but that's what you would expect. Okay, thank you.
If I have to bring it back to where it was, then I have to bring it back to the asphalt that was existing, because that's what was there. It was an existing slab of asphalt. It wasn't a grassy area. It was asphalt that had been there from 1972. And if you want me to dig up the concrete and pour asphalt in its place, then that's what I'll do, because like I said, it was existing. I didn't change the buffer or anything like that. I just went over an existing impervious surface. So that's why I'm,
Two quick questions. The short fence, the rope fence, whose property is that on? Is that on this or is that on Caroline Sands?
That's on Caroline Sands.
Okay, gotcha. And second one, the height of the post, higher than 6 feet, 8 feet probably? Or?
Yeah, about 8 feet.
Okay.
You know, just enough for a trussed ceiling to go on.
Got it. Okay.
And just for clarification, fence post can be 7.5 foot for decorative or
Okay.
so, but the horizontal,
The actual
the
fence itself has
fence,
to be 6 foot.
6 foot.
Got it.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we hear from Inspector?
I would like to, yeah, a couple of questions. Richard, would you mind answering a few questions for us, please?
Good evening, Board. I'm Richard Lang, your building inspector.
Hello, Richard.
We all know Richard.
Richard, we heard that you had gone out and inspected these posts that are in the ground. When you did that inspection, was there survey stakes or anything that you could determine where the property line was?
No, sir. Can I expand?
Oh, I'd like it very much.
Meeting, as I remember, it's been, a year and a half. Then he said, I have a fence permit. And at some point, I would like to put a trellis on these posts. What kind of footing would it take to be able to do that? And we discussed it and came up with a footing that would hold the trellis. I advised Vinnie, if you're going to put a trellis on this, then you need to get zoning approval and get Jeremy Hardison to evaluate and see that that's possible. So that's how the larger footing got put in. And I don't know of any regulations on what a fence post has to be, whether it be an 8x8 or a 4x4. And then any discussion about the slab, I don't recall.
Does anybody have any questions for
Did you
Richard?
come back?
I might have gone back twice,
You did come back. What is the second time for?
Second time was the hole needed to be a little bigger, and they stuck some rebar through the 8x8s.
Okay. So you were just following up on a defect of the first inspection?
Well, it's not so much a defect. As everybody knows, the post would have been adequate for a fence. But I don't look at fence posts. All I do for the town is building inspections.
Yes.
And I try to limit that to nuts and bolts. As in, when I'm asked what, kind of footing it would take to support a future trellis, I answered that question. But there would be no reason, to my knowledge, as to why that guy couldn't put a bigger footing around that column than necessary.
But were you reacting to a fence inspection, or were you reacting to a construction inspection?
Fence, because we didn't have a building permit.
Well, he did have a building permit. He had a fence permit.
Had a fence permit.
So-
And that's why I was brought out to look at the footing on a fence post. And during that time, I was asked, what would it take, in the future to put a trellis on this? And if the slab was brought up, I would have said, yeah, that would make the post more secure. The bottom line, I advised Benny to make sure it was approved by zoning before proceeding.
Did you have a discussion with Jeremy as to what you were looking at any
I
time?
think I talked to Jeremy to make sure there was a fence permit.
Okay,
I don't review fence permits.
I understand. But you weren't looking at a fence.
Well,
It looked
I
like you were
can't-
looking at a building construction.
Well, there's been discussion about if I should be requiring certain standards on fences, which I don't believe I should. But if somebody asked me to come out and look at one and discuss it, I feel like as being a public servant, that would be part of the service.
In other words, what you're saying is I could do overkill on my fence and just give you advice for down the road later on. And essentially is what you're saying, right?
Yes, ma'am.
It didn't require rebar for the fence, but if I wanted to put rebar in there, you were going to tell me how to correctly do it.
At this time, if something in the future were to
Understood.
come in.
So if he was to have to modify his patio floor, he would, how far away from the fence posts would he have to cut his concrete in order to maintain the stability of those posts, per your advice?
I wouldn't, the slab wouldn't be necessary.
Wouldn't be necessary at all?
No, sir.
Okay. So he could cut, how would we correct the present defect by cutting back the slab then?
Well, you know, that if we cut the slab back, the posts that are there will be supporting the fence, so there won't be much structure to it.
Okay. But he still has the
Slab would be
he still has those footers that are 4 foot by 4 foot.
Which is, I don't think that's a violation of any.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm just wondering how far back would he have to cut the slab in order to make this, you know, without destroying the integrity of his posts?
It wouldn't matter.
Okay, thank you.
Even if he were to put a trellis on it, it would still handle that much.
Gotcha.
Trellis doesn't have a lot of structure.
Right.
Mostly our structure in this area is wind, and the trellis being open, you wouldn't have as much resistance.
True. Thank you.
Any other questions? Richard, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think I'd like to get other opposing views. We have each, I try to give everybody 2 options. Are there any other opposing views? Anybody would like to speak that did not want this? Please step up.
Everybody keeps saying that the building's on the HOA's property. It's actually not. We're going to put it here.
There, okay.
I'll show you what's happening. Okay, so this part right here that cuts through, this is the actual back corner of the building, and it sits right on the line, because I haven't had this main circuit, because I want to buy this house. I tell me everybody here, we're eventually going to do it, they're going to pick it up. This part of the building right here overhangs outside of Vinny's building. It's an actual overhang, about 4 feet. So the building's actually set back 4 feet, even though the roof line continues out over the top. So it's not actual building. It's just an overhang. And it was there from the existing building, because like you said, at one time, this was a driveway. So people came and drove through and left this way, and that was part of the gas station that was there way back in the day, from what I got. I've seen pictures of this building back today, only because Ralph, the owner, showed me the pictures from what we were buying. I was part of the transition to start building the kitchen part. And he's correct, okay, there was probably asphalt down there one time, but we actually took the building over and ripped the building out and used it out the restaurant. And over here was some shambles. The homeowner association, if they remember, they could probably say that. And Ralph had went and was supposed to submit his plans, and they said they wanted a buffer zone now as of 2011 capital guidelines, things in the buffer zone. You got to have land. So obviously you can't get it at the building. The building's on the property line. But over here, he decided to take peat gravel and roll out peat gravel to be a pervious surface. Whether he ripped up the asphalt or not, that's nobody's knowledge. The peat gravel's been there, and it's been there for many years, which is fine. Then he keeps saying that he wants to protect this area with a small fence and kind of keep people in there, which is what we talked about over the years. We complained about. I mean, he's got my phone calls in the middle of the night saying, "Hey, they're in my yard. You know, here's the picture of my rose bush. You know, come pick up the trash." Putting the fence there would be great. I have no problem with that. The biggest problem is with him building the patio and extending it out. He's added a ton of tables. He's doubled his patio and then some. And he's pushed it to the line. And then he's put these posts in there that, you know, not to say he's overkilling the fence, but you literally could build a house on top of this stuff. So my mind is, what's going to be there in the future, or what is he planning on doing? Putting a little 5-foot fence over here, block fencing, have some privacy, great idea. I hope the homeowners would be on board with that too, because that would be a great idea, because it would keep the kids. Because all the kids do, this is me, you know, actually, the property line, the way it actually sits, it kind of cuts through right here, and half of this is actually on my side. I'll actually take care of it, HOA takes care of this, and the kids run through here, and we just keep running and running the trails, and, you know, $100 bush every year I got to put in, and $5 worth of mulch that gets pushed into my yard every year. It's getting old. And we've talked about this, and I'm not trying to knock into what he's doing, and hope he doesn't take that way, but it's just this extra part right here, and you know, when you use that part and actually push more people out to that patio, and actually pushing them, I mean, because literally last year, with the extra seating in the patio there, without the fencing in there, they pushed more people into the yards, because they there was just that many more kids out on the patio, and that many more kids just pushing out of here. Because once they sit there and they're done with dinner at 6 o'clock and the food flies out, everybody's just sitting having a drink. And the kids are just everywhere. They're in my yard, they're yelling at my kids, or climbing on my fence right here, which Eric told me you guys have to put over the property line. It's just one of those things. So putting a fence along the whole property, if you wanted to do the whole property, you could actually do it. Just really touching the back corner of the building. It's not the building. The posts out here, they're 104 inches. They're pretty high. 7.5 feet, 90 inches, a little bit over that. If everybody puts a fence in, they put a big post in, they come off the tops off. These things have been out there for a year now, almost. Eventually, I would hope they would come down, but what's happened is boards have gone across the top of them like he's going to eventually build a roof of some sort of a trellis, and now we got lighting on that. So this area becomes a party zone. It's getting too much at this point. The parking issue, and you can see the cars, this property line's here. This actually stretches out even further now. The cars line up in here 3-4 deep sometimes. And so I know parking's an issue already because his employees are parking in the lots behind me. And the garbage and everything else that comes with the restaurant. And I like the restaurant. It's a big takeout from that. It's not that I want to see him bad. I want to do good because everybody likes it. But it's just there's a stopping point. And this is, kind of getting past that a little bit. Especially just super stretching the deck out. And then the violation picture, Jeremy, can you bring that up? But actually, you can still see the pea gravel because where it was shoveled out. This is the driveway. That's the actual pea gravel that was there. And whether Ralph ripped up the blacktop or not, we knew that he was supposed to. I can't vouch for that.
Were there any bushes or just pea gravel?
Well, before Vinny moved in, when we actually ripped out this whole back area back here was so overgrown and stuff, and HOA they stopped right here. They didn't take care of any of that, but it was so overgrown with just rolling vines and stuff, which if we don't take care of this, the rolling vines just...
So there was no landscape buffer at that time when you went in to redo it? It was just overgrown?
Just overgrown stuff. So, I had no idea what would be under there. Nobody would until you rip it out, and there was blacktop there, which there probably was because this was the drive-through originally. Ralph just came in with a back truck and backed pea gravel over the top of it. Now we have permanent surface. The easy way out, make it look like it's there. So that's kind of what's happening. You can see. You usually fit about 3 or 4 tables out here. We got 3 extra 4 tops and then 2 top over here. It's 14 to 16 extra seats. In the restaurant, that it's just overflowing as it is. But putting a small little privacy fence coming around and blocking in like a little deck area, that sounds like a great idea. I don't knock it. But the whole building it over, you're eventually building a whole other structure to really extend it. But putting the pea gravel back in, that would be probably suffice the way it was been sufficing over the last couple of years. Like Carolina Beach, everybody's growing. It's getting to a point where we have to stop though. That's really all I have to say. I'm not trying to knock what things doing. It's getting to a point where, it's just getting a little overrun. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone on board have additional questions?
It's my understanding that we have a fence application, that we actually do not have any other permit except a fence application and an approved fence permit. Is that correct?
That's correct. Did everybody hear that? Jerry, nobody heard you this
It's
time.
my
So could you use your
understanding
microphone?
that we actually have a fence application and a paid for and approved permit, and we do not have a permit for anything else.
Right.
Is there a timeline on a permit?
There is.
With, you'd have to get a inspection within a 12-month period of issuing the permit.
You fellows have any questions?
This was issued in 14, so this is a year and a little year and a half ago.
Well, for the first year you have to do it.
But this is a doable, renewable permit. It
certainly.
requires no tear. Fence
For the
application, is
fence.
that correct?
No, ma'am.
Other questions? Are there any other questions?
Any more public comment?
Unless there's anything revolved from Carolina Sands.
We just got,
Anything else from Carolina Sands?
everybody from Carolina Sands is all set? Yeah, I think we're good. Well, see, the thing is, Vinny, I give each side 2 turns, so if you keep coming up, I got to let them keep coming up. Okay? So the variance tonight is for a buffer yard landscaping to be eliminated on the south side 5 feet landscape buffer requirement alongside of Uncle Vinny's restaurant. And I'd like to go through each of the 4 requirements, and we'll then take a vote on each of the requirements and move down through them. It is required that all 4 of the requirements be met as far as getting a variance. So if one of them is not met, the variance would have to be denied. If we have something that denies the variance, we will continue with the other items, though, anyways.
Say that again.
The 4 conditions that must be met for Vinny to get a variance, we will vote on each one individually. Okay? If one of them does not pass, that he would get a permit, we will continue with the rest of the items. So we will vote on all 4 of them, even if the first one, it was decided no.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Number 1, unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. It shall not be necessary to demonstrate that in the absence of the variance, no reasonable use can be made of the property.
You look at the only female of it?
All right, I'll take number 1. The unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. I don't know what the hardship would be. And no reasonable use can be made of the property. Well, it's being used wonderfully, and I'm very happy to say successfully at this time. So I'm not sure how we could possibly meet number 1. And I'd like to specifically address Vinny's rebuttal and coming back up saying that, he was doing what he thought was right, which I appreciate, that we should all try to do what is right. But he has a fence application, does not have any kind of an application for anything construction other than a fence. So I'd like to take, are there any comments regarding number 1?
I agree, and I do not mind starting. That is a no for me. I think it is not a necessary hardship. And I also think there's room for cooperation between the 2 parties. From listening to the 2 parties, there seems to be a joint concern for many from the property owners for Carolina Sands and the vandalism of the property and him trying to come up with a solution. And the property owners respecting Benny for what he's trying to do and only wanting protection for their property. So there seems to be a reasonable outcome maybe can be reached at this point in time. So, but I do have to say, I do not think it's an unnecessary hardship.
I would agree. I do not think it's necessary.
So you vote no?
I vote no. Correct.
Okay.
No.
No.
And I vote no. And I think that Jerry's words are extremely accurate. And I think that unfortunately, I feel bad for Vinny that has spent money on something that doesn't appear that it's working out this way. But I truly believe that that each party here has mutually beneficial situations. Clearly, the HOA has been very clear about how they feel, and Vinny has been very clear about how he feels, yet both parties are neighbors, and both can benefit from their neighbors. So I truly hope that that will be the case. We're going to move on to number 2. The hardship results from the conditions that are particular to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from the conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. We'll start at this end.
No.
This is the one that hangs me up a little bit. He has a particular unusual configuration that he had no control over, i.e. his building is impacted by the property line. And if you take this 5-foot buffer and apply it to the strictest of the law, that 5-foot buffer has to extend the whole length of his building, not just one little piece. And that is a hardship for him. So I tend to vote yes.
Okay. I will vote no, because I believe that that the building is askew, but we have a law that says you have to have a 5-foot buffer. And if the building is existing closer than 5 feet to the property line prior to that law coming into effect, well, clearly that section cannot meet that law, and it is grandfathered. But it does not excuse the rest of the property from meeting the current law. I vote no.
I would vote yes on that one. I would agree with the similar scenario that this property is peculiar, without a doubt. And so for that reason, I would vote yes on that.
Okay.
There are many properties in the town of Carolina that have been grandfathered in, and the grandfathering issue is one probably that is debatable. This property and building would be grandfathered in unless the use was changed. When the use was changed, it brought that building into a situation that it needed to meet current standards. So I have to vote no.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The act of purchasing the property with knowledge that circumstances exist that may justify the granting of variance shall not be regarded as self-created hardship. Start back with you, Jerry, if I may.
This is one of those negatives. The hardship does not result from actions taken by the applicant. I think that it does result, so I have to say no, it does. I always get that confused.
It's sort of a double negative.
It does not result, which is, yes, it does not. No, yes, it does not result from the actions taken by the applicant. No, it did not result from actions. I think it did result from actions taken by the applicant.
Right.
So your vote is to not approve?
Yes, no.
Okay, it's no. Okay, I know, that one's always a kicker.
I would agree no on that one. It is results of actions taken by the applicant.
And I concur with that. No,
I
it
concur.
is the results of the applicant. And that's all those. And the fourth one, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance. such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Rob, you're on.
Yes.
You vote to yes on that one, okay?
I concur, yes.
I cannot vote yes. I have to vote no because the spirit and intent of the ordinance is that people will follow it and that people will get the proper permit. So I do not believe that this meets that, and I would have to say no.
I would vote no on this one as well. I think the intent is to create the buffer, and so I think that's the goal of the ordinance.
I vote no because the requested variance has to come with some kind of permit. At this point, we don't have a permit even to request a variance, so.
That's true. Okay. Vinny, I'm sorry, but your request has been denied, and I wish you good luck, and I hope that things move in a very positive way for you. Okay. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Are there any other items for the Board of Adjustments?
Just want to thank Jeremy for the reminder for the meeting. We appreciate that, Jeremy, very much, so it really helps out. So.
Anybody else?
Cut the concrete back. Well, you got to take the patio. Well, you don't have to take it all.
Chairman, I would like to introduce a council-appointed an alternate Board of Adjustment member that has been vacant for some time. Patrick Waken is here. And
Hello, Patrick.
Trying to get his feet wet with what it is that you do.
Okay. Have you ever done anything like this before?
Benny came in.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's good. That's good. Jeremy's got some wonderful publications and stuff that help us out with the quasi-judicial stuff. And actually, when Jeremy was just a young little pup right out of school, I got on the BOA at the same time, and he and I went to classes together to learn about what we were supposed to do and not supposed to do. And as you might notice, he's not a young little pup anymore.
Old and beaten.
That's all relative now.
That's all relative. Yeah.
Good process. Tonight was a really good process and a good meeting. I hope you got a lot out of that.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else?
No, I move we adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.
And thank y'all.
You know, one of the things that always struck me that we should talk about is that this is you mentioned the quasi-legal, quasi-judicial. And really, this is subject to some board of Supreme Court, the Superior Court review, and we should say that. I think this board should say that, because we are not the final arbiter. They can appeal to Superior Court.
And that's why I thought
Oh, yeah, but it's nice to let the know that is, that's why we are quasi-legal.
I don't think there's much reason on it. Say your order, appeal denied,
Slowly gets our
1 foot shrubs.